Rain poured down in thick sheets, blurring the glowing lights of the city into a hazy dream. The men stood outside the Grand Hotel, soaked to the bone, clutching a worn duffel bag. People passed him without a second glance, assuming he was just another stranger with nowhere to go. Inside, warmth, comfort, and luxury waited, but for him, the doors had just slammed shut. Moments earlier, security had escorted him out, their voices cold, their judgment final. No one asked his name. No one cared about his story. They saw his old clothes, his tired face, and made a decision. What they didn't know, what none of them could imagine, was that the man they had just thrown out was the owner of the very hotel they were protecting. Before we dive into this powerful story, make sure to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Welcome to Kindness Story Hub, where every story reminds us that small acts of kindness can change everything. The man's name was Daniel Carter. Years ago, he had built his life from nothing. Raised in a small town in Ohio, Daniel learned early what it meant to struggle. His mother worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on, and his father had passed away when he was just a boy. There were nights when dinner was a luxury, not a guarantee. But Daniel carried something stronger than hardship. He carried determination. He worked tirelessly, taking on any job he could find. He cleaned offices at night, stocked shelves during the day, and studied business whenever he had a spare moment. Slowly, step by step, he climbed his way up. Years later, he became a successful entrepreneur, eventually investing in real estate. One of his proudest achievements was purchasing and renovating a struggling hotel in downtown Chicago. He didn't just want it to be profitable. He wanted it to be a place where people felt welcome. A place where no one felt invisible. But success didn't change Daniel. He never forgot where he came from. And every year, on the anniversary of his father's passing, he did something unusual. He dressed in simple, worn clothes and visited his properties anonymously. He wanted to see how people were treated when they didn't look important. This year, the visit brought him to his own hotel. As Daniel stepped inside that evening, the lobby shimmered with polished marble floors and elegant chandeliers. Guests chatted softly while staff moved quickly, attending to every detail. It looked perfect on the surface. But appearances can be deceiving. Daniel approached the front desk with a gentle smile. The receptionist barely looked up. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone impatient. "Yes," Daniel said kindly. "I'd like a room for the night." Her eyes flicked over his soaked clothes and worn bag. She hesitated, then shook her head. "I'm sorry, we're fully booked." Daniel glanced around. He could clearly see several keys hanging behind the desk, rooms that were available. "Are you sure?" he asked softly. "I don't need anything fancy." The receptionist sighed. "Sir, I said we're full." Before Daniel could respond, a security guard stepped closer. "Is there a problem?" he asked. The receptionist gave a slight nod toward Daniel. "He's refusing to leave." Daniel felt a familiar sting, the kind he hadn't felt in years. Not anger, but disappointment. "I'm not refusing," Daniel said calmly. "I just needed a place to stay." The guard crossed his arms. "Look, buddy, this isn't a shelter. You need to move along." Without another word, they escorted him outside. And just like that, the man who had built the hotel was standing in the rain. But Daniel didn't argue. He didn't reveal who he was. Instead, he simply nodded and walked away. A few blocks down, he found a small diner still open. The neon sign flickered, and the smell of fresh coffee drifted into the street. Inside, a waitress named Maria greeted him with a warm smile. "Rough night?" she asked gently. Daniel smiled back. "You could say that." She didn't ask questions. She didn't judge. She simply brought him a hot cup of coffee and a plate of food. "On the house," she said. Daniel hesitated. "I can pay." "I know," Maria replied. "But sometimes, people just need a little kindness." For the first time that evening, Daniel felt seen. They talked for a while. Maria shared stories about her long shifts and dreams of opening her own cafe someday. Daniel listened carefully, offering encouragement and asking thoughtful questions. When he finally left, the rain had slowed. The city felt quieter, calmer. The next morning, everything changed. At the hotel, staff gathered nervously in the lobby. An urgent meeting had been called by upper management. Whispers filled the room as employees tried to guess what was happening. Then the doors opened. Daniel Carter walked in, this time in a tailored suit, confident and composed. The room fell silent. The receptionist's face turned pale. The security guard froze. Daniel looked around, his expression calm but firm. "Good morning," he said. "I'm Daniel Carter, the owner of this hotel." Shock rippled through the room. He continued, "Last night, I came here as a guest. Not as an owner. And what I experienced was deeply disappointing." No one spoke. "I was turned away, not because there were no rooms, but because of how I looked," he said. "That's not what this hotel stands for. That's not what I stand for." The receptionist lowered her gaze, tears forming in her eyes. Daniel's voice softened. "This isn't about punishment," he said. "It's about understanding. Every person who walks through these doors deserves respect. You don't know their story. You don't know their struggles." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I built this place to be more than a business. I built it to be a place of kindness." Over the next few weeks, Daniel made changes. He introduced new training programs focused on empathy and respect. He encouraged staff to treat every guest equally, regardless of appearance. But he didn't stop there. Daniel tracked down Maria, the waitress from the diner. When he walked into her workplace again, she greeted him with the same warm smile. "Back for more coffee?" she asked. Daniel chuckled. "Something like that." He told her who he was and how much her kindness had meant to him. "I'd like to offer you a job," he said. "At my hotel." Maria's eyes widened. "Me?" "Yes," Daniel said. "We need people like you, people who understand what kindness really means." Maria accepted. Months later, the hotel had transformed. Guests often commented on how welcoming the atmosphere felt. Staff greeted everyone with genuine warmth. And at the front desk, Maria stood as a shining example of what the hotel had become. One evening, Daniel watched quietly from across the lobby as Maria helped a tired traveler check in. The guest looked worn and uncertain, but Maria treated him with care, just as she had treated Daniel. In that moment, Daniel knew something powerful. Kindness isn't about status. It's not about wealth or appearance. It's about how you choose to see others. The people who once judged him had learned a lesson they would never forget. And the woman who showed him kindness without knowing who he was had changed the entire culture of a business. As Daniel stepped outside into the evening air, he smiled. The world can be harsh. People can be quick to judge. But kindness has a way of breaking through, even in the most unexpected places. And sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can lead to the biggest change. So the next time you see someone who looks different, who seems lost or out of place, remember this story. Choose kindness. Offer a smile. Extend a helping hand. Because you never know whose life you might touch. And you never know, they might change yours too.